No one in the paddock knew what was coming. Not the fans, not the commentators, not even the drivers who strapped themselves into their cars believing it was just another weekend. But motorsport has a way of turning ordinary days into dates the world never forgets. And on the 31st of August, 2019, racing changed forever. It began like any classic Belgian weekend. The sun cut through the Ardennes forest, the grandstands trembled with the voices of thousands, and Spa-Francorchamps, the cathedral of speed, looked almost serene. Moments earlier, Formula One qualifying had wrapped up. Charles Leclerc had retaken pole position, his Ferrari dancing through the corners with dominance. It was supposed to be the beginning of his biggest weekend yet. But just a few meters away, in the Formula 2 paddock, another young driver was preparing for his own breakthrough. Antoine Hubert, 22 years old, calm, polite, relentlessly focused. A kid who had clawed his way up the ladder with heart and grit, winning in Monaco and France earlier that year. For him, Belgium wasn't just another round. It was a chance to remind the F1 world why people were whispering his name as a future star. He knew he hadn't qualified well, only 13th, but Belgian races were often chaos, an opportunity blended into one. And if anyone could turn chaos into magic, it was Antoine. He spoke to the cameras with that signature smile, the kind that made you believe he was built for greatness. He talked about aiming for the top 8, about fighting back through the field, about enjoying the track that every driver grows up dreaming of. No fear, no tension. Just a young man living the life he'd chased since childhood. What no one knew, what no one could know, was that those would be some of the last words he ever said. Minutes after F1 qualifying, the lights went out for the Formula 2 feature race. The engines roared across the valley like thunder rolling over the hills. Spa, as always, opened its arms to speed. Antoine got a clean launch and immediately made progress. By the end of the first lap, he had already gained a position. The race looked alive, unpredictable, tense, everything Formula 2 is built on. And then, lap 2. It happened at a place feared even by legends. Eau Rouge, the corner that tests courage, downforce, and fate all at once. A corner that had taken drivers before. A corner that gives no warnings. One moment, the race was normal. Next, it was chaos. A car ahead lost control at over 300 kilometers an hour. Carbon fragments flew through the air as they smashed into the barriers and bounced back onto the racing line. The drivers behind had barely half a second to react. Some swerved. Some braked. But at those speeds, instincts don't matter. Only luck does. Antoine had no luck that day. His car clipped the back of another and fired straight into the wall. The impact was brutal, the kind that stops your breath when you watch it. But the nightmare wasn't done. Before his car could settle, before the marshals could react, another driver, Juan Manuel Correa, came flying into the scene. He had already collected debris. He had no control. And at nearly 200 kilometers per hour, he hit Antoine's car with a force so violent that even seasoned commentators gasped in horror. Lewis Hamilton, watching from the Mercedes garage, froze. You could hear the disbelief in his voice. You could hear the fear. You could hear something more powerful than words, the realization that this sport, even after decades of safety improvements, can still break. Both drivers were rushed to the medical center. Correa was critically injured, fighting for his life with shattered legs and collapsing lungs. Doctors battled to stabilize him. 3 surgeries would follow, and he would survive, but only barely. Antoine didn't. Just an hour after the crash, the announcement echoed through the paddock like a punch to the soul. A young life, a rising star, was gone. And with him, a piece of motorsport's innocence. Drivers who had grown up with him, Leclerc, Gasly, Russell, Ocon, were silent. Not shocked. Not confused. Just broken. Because they knew him. They knew how much he worked. They knew the dreams he carried. They knew that it could have been any of them. For Leclerc, the pain hit especially deep. This was the second time someone he loved had died chasing the same dream he was living. First, Jules Bianchi, his godfather. Now, Antoine, his childhood companion. And yet, less than 24 hours later, he had to race. Imagine standing on pole position with the memory of your friend echoing in every corner of the track. Imagine knowing you must attack, push, risk everything on the same circuit that had taken someone from you just one day earlier. Most drivers would crumble. Leclerc didn't. When the lights went out on Sunday, he drove with a clarity that didn't seem human. Hamilton tried to chase him down, corner after corner, lap after lap. But something inside Leclerc wouldn't let go. He wasn't driving for points. He wasn't driving for Ferrari. He wasn't even driving for himself. He was driving for Antoine. And when he crossed the finish line, he lifted his helmet and whispered the win into the sky. His first victory, a victory that should have been pure joy. But instead, tears. He said it himself after the race. It's hard to enjoy a weekend like this. I dedicate this win to him. Not a celebration, not triumph. Just tribute. Pierre Gasly, Antoine's roommate for years, was shattered. They had grown up together, eaten together, studied together, dreamed together. When Gasly walked to Eau Rouge later, carrying flowers in his hands, the silence around him said more than any interview ever could. He returned the next year, and the year after, and he still does, placing flowers at the corner that took his friend. He honored Antoine by pushing harder, achieving a podium, then winning his first Grand Prix, pointing to the sky. Everyone knew who that win belonged to. But out of the tragedy came an uncomfortable truth for Formula One. For all the technological brilliance, all the safety innovations, all the progress, the sport was vulnerable. The FIA launched an investigation unlike any before. They dissected the crash frame by frame. They studied the forces involved, analyzed debris patterns, rebound angles, cockpit intrusion, everything. And the conclusions were brutal. Antoine hadn't died because of a single mistake. He died because a series of failures aligned into one deadly moment. The first car's crash sent debris across the line. The narrow track left little room to avoid it. The barriers didn't absorb the rebound fully. The side of the car, the most vulnerable spot, took a violent direct hit. The forces reached levels considered unsurvivable. Eau Rouge, the legendary corner, suddenly became the enemy. For decades, drivers whispered about its danger. Some loved it, some feared it. But now the FIA knew it needed to change. They expanded runoff areas. They added gravel traps, and they reshaped barriers to reduce deadly ricochets. They strengthened the cockpit structures, particularly the sides, the exact place where Antoine took the impact. Tether systems were upgraded to prevent wings and wheels from turning into missiles. In-car warnings were modernized to alert drivers faster about debris and pressure changes. Safety did not evolve. It transformed, and that transformation would save lives. Just 1 year later, Romain Grosjean survived a fireball crash in Bahrain that would have been fatal in earlier eras. Stronger halos, better barriers, improved rescue response, all part of the chain reaction that began with tragedy. Antoine Hubert's legacy became bigger than any race win he could have earned. His story now lives in the design of every modern car, in every reinforced cockpit, in every expanded runoff area, in every young driver who walks into a garage feeling protected by innovation shaped from his loss. He was a fighter, a dreamer, and a kid with a smile that could light up a paddock. But above all, he was a racer, one whose impact didn't end when his race did. Motorsport is faster now, safer now, and alive now, because of the lessons written in his name. Some people say racing is just a sport. But days like August 31st prove it's far more human than we think. Behind every helmet is a story, a family, a dream, and sometimes a sacrifice. And that is why this crash didn't just shake the racing world. It changed it forever.